All right, welcome everybody. This is a public meeting of the West Bend School District and School Board Curriculum Committee. It is 4:30 p.m. on February 11th of 2025, and we will start with introductions. My name is Melanie Ergott, School Board Member.
June Kruger, School Board Member.
Kelly Lang, School Board Member.
Heather Isaacson, Program Administrator.
Kelly Downs, Curriculum Coordinator.
Jen Wimmer, Superintendent.
Erin Faust, Program Administrator. Tina Van Roo, District Data and Assessment Coordinator.
All right, so our first item up for discussion today is math grades 6 through 12 resource review, and that will be presented by Ms. Kelly Downs, our curriculum coordinator.
Well, I'm really excited to be here to share with you what this team has been working on. They've done a lot of really great work. Oh, that's not the right slide. We're just going to go right to the end. Just, you know. So we have a team of people that met, and this was our goal. Our goal, oh, go ahead. Sure, thanks. Our goal was to ensure that our primary curriculum resource provides all students and teachers the opportunity to achieve at high levels. Notice that we've included both. We want our students there, and we want the teachers to have the resource necessary to allow them to achieve their best with the best instructional practices. This keeps going to the end when I hit the arrow, so let me just roll back one more time. Okay. So where did this all begin? In 2022 and 23, a team was put together that did a program analysis of the math program as a whole. Those recommendations that came out of that program are listed on the left-hand side there. One of the things that came out was to establish a vision of math instructional practices and how would we support that with professional development. That was done in 2023. We've also continued that into 24-25. The actions that we took on that was we went through all of the research, all of the evidence. We've created something called lesson elements for our teachers, and it basically summarizes this is what instructional practices should look like in your classroom. We've had professional development around that for the past 2 years. In addition to that, one of the recommendations was for the teachers to participate in coaching related to those best practices. We were so fortunate because not only did we have professional development, but we brought in some very high quality people to deliver this. The Math Institute of Wisconsin is like the gold standard for math coaching, and we had Eric Cantors working with our middle school team, and we had Sarah Brown of Math Insights, who is a consultant as well, and between their PD days of doing that coaching, we had our own instructional coach supporting the work that was begun on those PD days and in their coaching cycles. So it was very thorough. We also had the intentional professional learning communities were really more beefed up, I guess I would say, and because they were in place, but they wanted them to be more intentional from that program analysis. We did that in 23 and 24. We've done that also in 24 and 25. In order to do that, we identified leaders and invited them to be part of this role. We've trained those leaders on the process of PLC. And then we didn't just leave them, we've supported them throughout the year from both my role, Kurt's role, the instructional coach, as well as Sarah Brown of Math Insights. We all would attend their PLCs. We'd support them in between PLCs. We help them develop their agendas. And then we would bring those teams together so that they could share what was working for them, what wasn't working for them, and continue to move forward. The next area was identifying areas of need regarding instruction and provide professional development to meet those needs. As you can see, we've already done that instructional support through professional development. But one of the areas that we really noticed within our program was that we needed to refocus onto common formative assessment. Our math teams were kind of far along in really developing their summative assessments, but we just needed to get that formative piece in there. So we've done that, and that focus on reteaching, like gathering that data in time and being able to reteach students right away. And then again, focusing on those instructional practices. The area that we had not addressed until 24-25 was investigating a potential new math resource for grades 6 through 12. So we assembled a team. And I really want to point out these names and take a minute to look at them, because these people applied, they gave their all, they bonded together as a team and shared their expertise and their time with us. So we were very thankful for this assortment of people. Notice that we have them across. We had representation from our middle school, from special education categories, from gifted and talented, from ELL, because we wanted all of their perspectives within looking at these resources. And we also had administrators on there too. So we engaged in a screening process. The first step for us was to look at Ed Reports. Ed Reports, which I'll talk about more in a minute about more what that is, they have over 152 resources that were on there. So our first step was, okay, we're going to look at that, but we want one that meets all of our expectations. So that was the first gateway. Once we did that, we were left with 21 middle school options and 20 high school options. So like I said, I want to tell you a little bit more about Ed Reports. It is a really wonderful clearinghouse. It's a nonprofit organization. It is teachers and educators that are trained for quite a while, and they go through month-long processes digging deep into these curriculums. So they are very focused on providing very high-quality materials, which we know is one of the most impactful things for student achievement. So they review those materials. It's a rigorous process, but I want to take your eyes to that 3 gateways part. Their process includes 3 gateways, which will become important later to what I'm telling you. The first one is focus and coherence. Then there's rigor and mathematical practices. And finally, the usability of the resource. Each one of those areas has several indicators within it. So I want to show you how this kind of works. If the gateway focus and coherence is really looking at, do the materials really focus in on that grade level content appropriately? Do they have extensive work with those standards, and are they consistent with them? If they meet or partially meet, they get to move on to Gateway 2. So if they don't meet that, they don't even move on to the second step in that process. The second one is rigor and mathematical practices. Are they meeting the expectation for that rigor? And then if they meet that for Gateways 1 and 2, they will move on to the final category of usability, which is, again, does it support teachers to be able to use this curriculum well? Does it develop their skills and their understanding of mathematical concepts, as well as models and instructional elements? So that's the process. Keep trying to use that button. So once we made it past our first screening, we took that Ed Reports and all of those indicators, and our team looked at the indicators, and through a very scripted process, we determined, okay, which of these indicators, though, are must-haves, that we absolutely have to have this one meeting a perfect score in that indicator. And from that, we were able to whittle it down to 8 middle school options and 4 high school options. This is an idea of what that indicator process looks like. So everything that is listed in blue were the indicators that our team decided we absolutely have to have perfect scores here. You'll see some of those red spots. That's just where we're indicating this is one that did not meet the criteria in that category. And on the left-hand side, you can see that's the list of the resources. The ones that are highlighted are the ones that met those categories. This is what it looks like. Now, there's a few other rubrics that we also continue doing this on. This is a sample. So from there, we did a final 3rd screening. The 3rd screening was developed by our team based off of those lesson elements that we've been working on for a year and a half now. So we decided, like, okay, what are these elements that we're going to look for within this resource that might not show up on these indicators? And from there, we developed a rubric. So we have a digital binder. In that binder is a rubric for every single resource that we looked at. It has the scores that everybody went through and we dug in, and we have comments and questions and scores for all of these resources on there. So one of the things that I really want to point out is that our current resource is CPM for 612. It was adopted in 2016, it was published in 2013, and the math standards were developed in 2010. The reason that's important is because when the math standards were introduced, they're really a 180-degree turn from what had been produced. So when that happened, many of the materials out there did not meet the rigor of the new standards or even the practices of the new standards. CPM was one of the first ones to come out that came close to that. So notice in 2013, they were one of the first. When our team dug into it, this was a very emotional topic for us to dig into because our teachers had invested a lot into making this work. They'd done a lot with the assessments. They'd learned so much through the process of CPM about new math practices that they hadn't put in place before. So it was emotional, but this was the finding. For grades 6 and 7, it did not meet the expectations in ed reports. So do you remember that pathway I showed you about meeting expectations in the 3 gateways? It didn't make it to the final gateway. On our little priority indicators, where those blue columns where we said these are must-haves, for the high school ones, only 7 of the 10 met the standards, and 8 of the 12 for the middle school standards were there. Then we thought, okay, well, what about the updated program for CPM? Those materials are not reviewed by ed reports at all. So already that first layer of our screening process that we took everything else through isn't there for us to look at. The high school, their program doesn't even begin to rewrite their program until 2025. So, and we thought, well, do we wait for that? But we contacted them, they're like, we don't even know when it will be released. So there was no, oh, it's almost there, we should wait. It just wasn't even a date to be achievable. And finally, our achievement data has been stagnant. So for all of those reasons, we wrestled with it as a team. And I remember one of our teachers at it said, you know what? It's what's best for kids. We need to look at a different resource. So that is why we're moving on. So we wanted a resource that will better support our instructional vision that we created with those lesson elements and our teachers. It also aligns to the Wisconsin standards and practices and improves our student achievement. To that end, we are at the point where we have got our final selections. We started in June with our kickoff, where we established our process, we developed our rubrics, we did our evaluation. We have it down to 2 for the middle school and 2 for the high school. For the middle school, we're looking at Imagine Learning's illustrative math. And the other option is iReady. For the high school, we have Kendall Hunt's illustrative math, and we have Open Up. You've heard me say illustrative math now twice. When we go through that resource on ed reports, many of the highest rated ones use the illustrative math platform. Illustrative math was created by one of the founders of the standards. And so when he wrote that up, he made it as an open resource. So different vendors have picked that up. So then it's just a matter of which bells and whistles do you like, which support your teachers best in delivering this and your students. So we're at the point of January and February. We're looking to do some visits to the schools so our teachers can see it in action. We've invited the vendors to present on our PD day for our larger staff. We're ready for them to look at these final options. So they will experience those vendor presentations. We're developing a form for feedback so they can tell us their thoughts on these final options. And we will be putting all of the materials in the schools for a few weeks for the teachers to have a chance to kind of dig in and get their hands on these new options. We're hoping to have a selection to you by March. So this is the approval process timeline that was established. We're hoping that on 3/11, I'm coming to you with the final recommendation from that team. Then we're hoping to do the public viewing and a survey to gather the public's thoughts on these, and then we will move to the curriculum committee one more time before we go into that board process. Again, I want to bring you back to our goal. This team has put a lot of work and time and expertise. One thing I want to make sure I mention to you is that all of the decisions along the way were not done by majority vote. They were all done with a consensus process so that we had the full consensus of everybody on every decision. When we didn't, we'd go back, we'd wrestle through the ideas until we could get that consensus. We did that so that we can ensure that our primary curriculum resources are going to provide all students and teachers with that opportunity to achieve at high levels. Do you have any questions for me about this process?
Just one. So the only grade I think that would be affected by this would be 6. If there's any teachers that teach dual courses, I know we just implemented the new CKLA program. So is there anyone who overlaps math and ELA in 6th grade that, okay,
No.
just, that's a lot of new things,
That
so.
would be too much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, of course. No, and one of the things we're having a lot of conversations about too, as far as that implementation process, because our high school teachers, some of them would be teaching geometry and algebra, or 2 courses that would both be impacted. If that's the case, we're going to make sure we work it out so that only one is implemented at a time. We really want that team feedback in that implementation process. And then when we design that, we'll be sending that out for more feedback from them.
All right, well, thank you for your presentation. I think it's, can tell a lot of work has been put into this, and I appreciate all the teachers and staff and everybody that's, really looking everything over very thoroughly and finding the best fit. And so I look forward to seeing what you bring forward for the public to review and the teachers, and thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Okay, the next item on our discussion today is English Language Arts Grade 5 Resource Review, and that will be presented by Heather Isaacson, our Curriculum and Instruction Program Administrator.
Hi, good evening. Nice to see you again. It seems like it's been a while, so I am happy to be here and talk about 5th grade English Language Arts Resource Review and recommendations. As you recall, I don't know if it's working. So it's not moving. Sorry.
No, this was kind of funky tonight. Did that not work? Oh, there you go. Just
Okay.
wasn't clicked on. There you go.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, so as you recall, I was here last year and we talked a lot about Act 20 and the work that we put into putting Amplify CKLA into the K-4 curriculum. And so we're going to just review that work to date and what steps we followed to get to that point. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. There we go. We got there. Okay, so we did have an Act 20 overview. That's how we started our process last year with our teachers to talk about the science of reading and what that entailed. And we then moved on to completing a needs assessment, and that was really in compliance with the shift in the early literacy law. We conducted a resource evaluation with a K-4 focus. And then we also, much like Kelly just described with her math team, we folded in different teams, our district literacy specialists, and different grade level teams to do that work. We went through the primary resource selection process in a similar fashion where we reviewed several different resources and came to our final conclusion at the end with Amplify. After looking at both Amplify and Wit and Wisdom as our final 2, we landed on the recommendation from the teachers with CKLA. Also did some site visits at Grafton, community viewing and input for several weeks, and then brought our final recommendation to the board of Amplify CKLA for grades K through 4. And then this year, we've had a great implementation of the resource with some amazing feedback from our teachers and parents and students. So we're really excited about how that has rolled out and are seeing some great results in the classrooms with that. Moving on to folding fifth grade, as we know that fifth grade is returning to the elementary setting, we would like to fold them into the comprehensive program for elementary. And so we started last year, 23-24, with a grade 5 program analysis. And those findings were some different areas of need. So one of the areas of need they uncovered was curriculum alignment and implementation for K-5. So in order to ensure that fifth grade rigor. And one of their proposed solutions was a complete K-5 curriculum and the alignment of that. So they would like to adjust the instructional minutes and ensure that they have enough minutes in the day to teach a comprehensive resource, use a comprehensive resource to teach and use those minutes, and then integrate a unified curriculum approach. So in the future steps, then we will look at grades K through 6. But right now we're really focused on that grade 5 in order to make sure that we have that cohort of fourth graders right now so that they have a seamless transition into fifth grade. Another area of need was to create a robust assessment system and choose a resource that includes standardized formative and summative assessment. So formative assessments are those checks for understanding along the way of whatever unit they're teaching, and then those summative assessments are those standards aligned assessments at the end of those units. They wanted to make sure that they were enhance student support and scheduling, and their solution was to increase literacy instructional time, like mentioned before, develop support schedules, and address diverse learning needs. And one of the last areas of importance was staff development and collaboration, and to provide resource-specific training, establish collaborative PLCs, and enhance collaborative data analysis. So the next steps, it's time to fold in the fifth grade ELA team to build that comprehensive curriculum into the elementary setting. And so the next steps is a review team. So much like last year where we had a team that was reviewing resources, we're looking at doing that again for this phase as well. So fifth grade ELA teachers would be part of that review team, as well as the special education teachers, literacy specialists from the elementary, intermediate, and middle level, curriculum and instruction administrators, and a fourth grade ELA representative, since they have firsthand knowledge now and are most closely aligned with that fifth grade. And our targeted timelines are here, bringing it to the curriculum committee to give an overview of what the work will entail. A staff preview coming up shortly. We will be highlighting that on our next PD day on the 17th, so that that's kind of their first real look at what it will be, and then they will give us feedback on how they would like to engage in the work moving forward. Then we hope to bring it to public viewing and survey, back to the curriculum committee, and then again to the board for those last approval and recommendations. So we will be beginning that work, like I said, much like the math initiative. And once they've had an opportunity to engage in the work, we're looking forward to bringing a recommendation. Questions?
Thank you for your presentation. I think it makes sense that we would want to have the fifth grade aligned with the other elementary levels, with them moving back down to the same building. So that definitely makes sense. And, yeah, does anybody else have?
One question on slide 6, where there's an area of need related to enhanced student support and scheduling. Could you tell me more about the scheduling or what this area of need is? Maybe the kids aren't having enough time in their current schedule. It was very quickly addressed, but I don't know if I got the whole.
So when you look at right now at Silverbrook Intermediate, they're navigating a bell-to-bell schedule. They're often 45, 48-minute class periods, closed periods. When you look at resource alignment and literacy instruction, just as Kelly's talking about math, probably needing an hour. Looking at literacy, that's generally 60-plus minutes, hour and a half to incorporate writing and all of those. So sometimes the resources we're using don't align with where we've shoehorned them into a schedule. That movement back into 5th grade opens up pathways for different schedules. Schedule design isn't something that's going to change in the next year, but it's something to look at as a piece of the puzzle moving forward. That's a little bit more when 5th grade goes back into elementary schools to be part of that model. It's a little bit longer term, but that's where sometimes you're rubbing up against some artificial pieces that don't align with instruction. So we see that in multiple areas.
All right, it looks like no more questions, so we'll look
Your
forward
time.
to seeing you back.
All right, thank you.
All right, the next item up for discussion tonight is the Q4 book club list, and that will be presented by Erin Faust, our Curriculum and Instruction Program Administrator.
Thank you for having me this evening. We're going to go through 5th grade and 6th grade. 5th grade, just to refresh everyone's memory, we send home permission slips in both a paper form and a digital form for our students in 5th and 6th grade to ensure that families have their preferred way of granting permission. Also, for both of these grades, we have offered them the opportunity to grant permission in 2 different ways. So both grade levels have participated in a book club previous to 4th quarter. So parents have had the opportunity to grant blanket permission at this point, saying my child has permission to read any book that's presented, or families had the opportunity to grant permission saying I want to look at each book unit by unit and grant permission as I go. So that information is included on this introductory document that also has all of the book information. And teachers will send this out along with instructions to families when they're ready to begin the book clubs. So 5th grade Q4 book club really focuses on the standards around understanding setting and the writer's craft, and they do that utilizing the fantasy genre. If you scroll, and I don't want to make everybody sick, the books that are on the top of this list are books that were previously approved last year. So if you scroll down to page 3, there are 2 books highlighted in pink. Those are books that the team brought forward this year for additional consideration so that our students have several more options of books to choose from. So the first one is The Escape from Mr. Limoncello's Library. The other book is The BFG. Both of these books, through teacher review and a curriculum and instruction department review, did come up as NA in all 3 of our screening categories. So I just wanted to bring them forward to you this evening to share that the team is looking to implement these additional titles. Questions on the 5th grade books?
I don't have any questions, but I'm happy to see that you found a couple more books with the NA across all 3 categories and give people some more options to choose from. So I don't have any issues with either of those. And I just love that we're being so transparent too with the permission slips and giving people the choice.
Yes, so when this goes out to families, we will probably remove the pink, but that was just to draw your attention to it this evening that these are new titles. All right, and then same format for our 6th grade students because they are in that same building. They will also have families have had the opportunity to grant blanket permission, they can also grant on this unit by unit, and they will receive paper copy and digital copy from the teachers. This fourth quarter unit is thinking critically across genres, and it's a unique unit because all of the books in this unit are books in verse to really help students dive in and look at author's craft, look at text structure, and really focus on those standards and how the structure of the literature develops meaning. So this entire list is a new list for sixth grade. None of these books have come forward before. So this would be our first look through them. Many of the titles are NA across the board. We were very careful and the team was very thorough on providing several options for families. And then following our format that we have followed throughout this school year, we have included, and I'm sorry that this is being a little jumpy, areas where there is some information that we wanted to share with families to help them make an informed decision. So the first one would be the crossover. And as in past meetings, if you would like to have the actual text evidence for these, I can provide that. Otherwise, this is the information that would be shared with families.
I did look this one up and was kind of able to find the gist of it and some other reviews online, but maybe for the record, you know, at the meeting, would you mind reading that little section?
Let's just find them. Give me a moment to pull up my other document. Okay. So for this one, the way that we have it worded on the permission slip for families is that there is some suggested sexual contact between adults. That is very, very benign, but also very clear to families that that may be something they want to not have their child read. So the quote from the text is, "And then there is silence. So I go and set the table because when they stop talking, I know what that means." So it is very, very inferential, but I err on the side of letting families know that that information is in the book. The other one that says teens kiss, the quote for that one is, "She's kissing your brother." So just the fact that that happens, it does not necessarily meet our threshold of sexual content in any way, but also transparency-wise, for sixth grade students, it's better to have it on there than not. Other questions about the crossover? Okay. The second book that has information that's additional for families is Brown Girl Dreaming. There is a scene where a child is punished with a switch. And again, for the record, I can share the text evidence for that. So the quote here is, "As she slips her closed hand over it, removing the leaves, my brother begins to cry because the branch is a switch now, no longer beautifully weeping at the bottom of the hill. It whirs as my mother whips it through the air and down against my brother's legs. As the switch raises dark welts on my brother's legs, Della and I look on, afraid to open our mouths." So it is a historically accurate punishment for the child. I don't have the text evidence of the inference that led the child to being punished, but that is the evidence there. So again, transparency-wise, I don't believe it would rise to our level of graphic violence needing to remove the book, but transparency for families. Questions about Brown Girl Dreaming? Okay. Then the next book that has additional information is Hidden, and this one needs an additional word added to this. It's a shooting is mentioned, so that needs to be added to this permission slip before it goes out to families. Because as I was reviewing this one additionally, the text is a girl narrating this, saying, "You suddenly hear a gunshot, the car door opens, and a voice yells for the car to turn on." That's the extent of that scene. So I just want to clean that up and say, you know, it's not a shooting scene where that's described in any great detail, but again, for families that may not want that, I'd rather have it clearly delineated what that means. Okay. Rhyme Schemer has some middle school potty language in it, and I want to err on the side of caution here of I am not certain because it does not rise to the level of obscene language in any ways, but it does rise to the level of middle school students saying butt and boobs in this book. So again, full disclosure, it's there. Families don't want their children to read those words, but for sixth graders, I'd rather just close. And then the last book that had additional information was Red, White, and Whole. And very similar to the first one, the language here is, I don't actually have the text evidence. It's just mentioned in several online reviews that there is a kiss between two teenagers.
Sounds good. I really appreciate the transparency. I know even myself as a parent, like some of this that shows up on here, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, it's fine if you read it. But I appreciate it being very open for families that do want to know that information. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay, so the next item on our discussion list today is policies in the 300 series, which is instruction, and that will be presented by Dr. Jen Wimmer, our superintendent.
So I am the liaison to the policy committee. We're not going to spend the next 2 days going over all these policies right now. What I want to do is alert you to that review cycle, the process that's coming before us, and how you can engage in that process as well. So you can see it's a wide swath of policies, largely around instruction, instructional programs, access to different things. Field trips are in there because they're instructional, so it's quite large. The policy committee is looking at actually engaging students in policy. You've probably seen emails from kids around like, hey, let's talk about our valedictorian policy. Let's talk about graduation. Let's talk about things that really impact students. So we will be engaging with the high school. So just like we did when we did the 400 series in behavior, we pulled a whole team with assistant principals and people who were impacted and reviewed that. That's how we would engage with the 300 series. We'll pull students, counselors, administrators, team from teaching and learning, both the student services side as well as the curriculum and instruction side, to dig in and analyze and develop recommendations that'll go actually to both committees. So we'll run that through curriculum committee around its content, and the policy committee will help polish and get that language on your behalf, and then full board for that discussion. So I'm just kind of sounding that this is coming, here's how we're going to convene, and having the committee dig in and share feedback. So when we go into pulling those teams together, we kind of have that foundation with us. So if there's anything, we will be kind of launching that full scale on all the policies that you see before you. So if you've got any feedback, we'll also alert other board members around this process and what we'll be engaging in. Do you have any questions or recommendations or something that you'd like to see as we engage students and staff in this review? Yep.
So it is quite a list, and so I can imagine many of them won't change, but maybe several will. So will those be just bubbled up saying, there's changes to these, there's removing of these, and this is kind of what we did in an executive summary?
It's just like, so you've seen policy work before. So once we unpack that, we'll start categorizing. So I might then bring a set of 5 to you and say, we've gone through this for content, we have no recommendations for change. Confirm with you, you don't have it, then we'll take that through policy. There's no recommendation for change from the curriculum committee because they're going to be looking to you on this content for that direction. And so then we'd be able to bring it forward. So we'll start chunking them. You'll never see them in such a huge list. We'll start parsing out that work to that end. Any other questions? Like I said, this will be an exciting one. The students from policy last year, we really felt we wanted to engage students in policies that impacted them. So that is something really mindful. We're adding them to the team in this way. So this will be the first series that they get to do that with.
Okay. Well, I don't have any questions, so.
As I
we're
said,
good.
no worries, you don't have to tackle them tonight.
I look forward to seeing them in smaller chunks, right?
Absolutely. So we'll then keep you informed as a curriculum committee around the progress of that as we pull that. So you'll see that just updating around those teams, the progress of their work, and then you'll start seeing it in small batches back here.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right. Well, it looks like we have reached the end of our agenda. If there are no further questions or comments, I would make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kelly. All right. It looks like we are adjourned then. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and it is 5:10 p.m.